you want to fold your stick?
I'm not trying to flex or anything. We're doing Thanksgiving, which is the greatest food holiday ever. I have made Thanksgiving so many times, but this is my favorite menu I think I've ever developed. My first at the New York Times, where it's a full menu, and it's super colorful, bright, so much texture. Still has those kind of Thanksgiving classics, but with my little twists. Of course, we have a turkey based off of the turkey that I grew up eating. This one is made with reduced down pomegranate juice, and then you make black pepper, thyme, and brown butter gravy to go with it. You always need some kind of snack for guests. I love a dip. This one is a bright, herby green feta dip. This year, I'm doing turmeric mashed potatoes. Turmeric gives this wonderful golden hue. They get butter inside and buttermilk. You top them with a little bit more butter, scallions or chives, and then black pepper. I always think you need an orange vegetable on the Thanksgiving table, whether that's sweet potatoes, a squash, mashed up, roasted. This year, I roasted them and served them on yogurt, and then a citrus chili crisp. Next is Brussels sprouts buried in cream. It's Brussels sprouts that are cooked down with garlic and cream until they thicken, and then you scatter a bunch of panko that's been tossed with olive oil and dill and black pepper. Cranberries are often an afterthought. You need that acidity, that sweetness. These are simply sweetened with a little bit of honey, and then right before you serve them, I drizzle them with tahini. I always grew up with rice on the Thanksgiving table, but this one is a coconut rice, and it gets this texture from crispy kale that you bake up until you basically are making kale chips. For dessert, I went with a cake, not a pie, because why not? It's a pumpkin olive oil cake with a salted maple cream. It's super delicious. So if you only have 2 days to make the whole entire meal, this is the video to watch. If you have 5 days, then I would turn to the article that I wrote. Okay, so the one thing, no matter how simple or complicated your Thanksgiving meal is, and this is good just even whenever you're entertaining, is to have a bit of a game plan. I don't have great penmanship. So day one, the turkey. We're gonna do a dry brine. Next would be squash. And we can make that chili crisp today. We have the feta dip, prep the herbs, and we'll make it. Cranberry sauce. We're gonna leave the tahini out. And we have the pumpkin cake. It's an oil-based cake, so it's not gonna dry out. And then last, for today, 1L or 2? 2L. How do you spell Brussels sprout? 1L, yeah. That feels manageable. Day two. Pomegranate glaze, brown butter gravy, roast, rest, carve, squash, cut, roast, citrus, yogurt, cranberries, just swirl, tahini in, mash, potatoes, boil, cheese, chives, coconut rice, rinse, soak, kale chips, cook rice. This doesn't feel like too much for just the last day, but it's gonna hit you. Well, it'll hit me. Bake off. Okay, I'm tired already. When it comes to entertaining, a big thing that I love is obviously setting the table. I'm gonna draw things out. When I think about how I'm plating, really what does a lot of heavy lifting is the platters and the vessels. Contrast is really important. If a dish is green, to really make it pop, you almost want to put something in the opposite color. This might not make any sense to you. It's just a bunch of circles right now, but we're gonna get some really nice pretty platters, and it will just make your dishes that much more beautiful. Okay, so we need to get our turkey brining. We want to get it really seasoned, so that's gonna be our first thing. Okay, so we have our turkey. It's about a 10 to 12 pound turkey. Some dry brines have a lot of different spices or herbs. This is fairly simple. We're just using kosher salt, freshly ground black pepper, light brown sugar, thyme leaves that have been chopped. And then once you see that there's no kind of clumps, then you're ready. I'm just gonna pat the turkey dry of any kind of excess moisture. A big thing is putting the turkey on a wire rack, so it's not just sitting in the salt on the baking sheet. There's a lot of dry brine, but a lot of it falls to the bottom. So I'm gonna wash my hands, and then I'm gonna place this turkey uncovered. That is key. You don't wanna cover the turkey. You want the kind of air from the fridge to really dry the skin out, just so the skin can dry out and really get that nice burnished, crisp skin. So we're gonna start our pumpkin olive oil cake. We're gonna just completely bake it today. I have my oven preheated at 350 degrees. We're gonna start with our dry ingredients. We have some all-purpose flour, some ground cinnamon, salt, always, baking powder and baking soda, and then nutmeg. This is a combination of cinnamon and nutmeg that will really give it that pumpkin spice effect. We're just gonna whisk this up to combine. Next, we're gonna make our wet batter. So it is going to start with eggs. Eggs. This is going to give our cake some structure, and we're gonna combine that with our sugar, just granulated sugar. Okay, you can see how it's gotten really thick. You can see that visual indicator of just like thick ribbons falling back. Now we're gonna add our canned pumpkin puree, half of this. I just tend to always work in batches with so many things when I'm baking. Once you're adding the pumpkin, the oil, or dry ingredients, you don't wanna overmix. You wanna just make sure that you get that kind of nice, tender crumb. And then once that's mixed in, we're gonna stream in our olive oil. I prefer something that's a little bit fruity, that isn't too kind of a spicy oil, so that the pumpkin and those warm spices can shine. Then we'll add the vanilla extract, half of our dry mixture. Ooh. Accidents. Just scrape the sides. Then we'll add the remaining dry ingredients. And I don't even mind if there's a few specks of flour left. I could do that by hand. Okay, I just go around the sides once more. It's crazy what like a combination of cinnamon, pumpkin, it takes you to a very specific place. I have a place in mind, but I don't think I can say it. $4. We have a 9-inch springform pan. We're just gonna add a little bit of oil, same extra virgin olive oil. And I go around the sides as well. Before you bake it off, you wanna use like an offset or a rubber spatula. Just kind of gently smooth the top. You just want to create an even layer without deflating it too much. We're gonna bake this off for 40 to 50 minutes until it's done. Okay, our cake is done. We're gonna pull it out. It's nice and firm at the top. We're gonna let this cool for 15 minutes and then I'll run a paring knife or an offset around the edges and then release it. We're gonna let this cool completely and then we'll wrap it in plastic. That's pretty nice. It's very satisfying. You can make this up to 3 days in advance. Because it's an oil-based cake, the crumb will still be very tender. I'm just going to put this aside. We'll unwrap it tomorrow. We'll whip our cream and sour cream, and then drizzle with maple syrup tomorrow. Okay, so we're gonna make our green feta dip. Super easy to make ahead of time. It's bright, it's tangy. First, we're going to zest and juice our lemon. We're gonna zest the entire lemon, and then we'll take the juice from both halves. And then we're gonna grate 1 clove of garlic. And then our herbs, this is just a mix of parsley and mint. You could use dill, cilantro, whatever you wish. Now we have our feta, and we just kind of crumble it in. Whenever you're working with the cheese that's really salty, you just wanna taste before you add any more salt. We're using a little bit of full-fat Greek yogurt to kind of cut it and add another layer of fat. You can let it go for a while until you really see that minty green color come through. See, look at that color. I like pressing the plastic directly on the dip, just to ensure you don't get a skin, since we're making this ahead. I love a simply prepared vegetable, like the squash that we're gonna be cooking off tomorrow, pairing it with a really incredible sauce. For the chili crisp, first we're gonna slice up our shallots and garlic. I'm gonna use a mandolin. You can totally use a knife though. Thin rings, and then I just kind of pop them out, just so they all can kind of crisp up nicely. In a skillet or in a saucepan, starting it cold, medium heat. The shallots are slowly starting to shrivel up. You thought there wasn't enough oil. You thought that for a second, and now look, it's like flooded with oil. You don't want the garlic to get too dark, because that's when it gets bitter, so definitely pull it when the garlic starts to look golden. We'll add the sesame seeds, salt, paprika, chili flakes. It just stains that oil. And you can see there's so much texture now. Everything's super crunchy. We're gonna let this cool for 10 minutes and then we'll cover and chill it. Then we'll add our citrus zest tomorrow. Time for cranberries. We are lucky to be using fresh cranberries. If you only can find frozen ones, that's totally fine. A little bit of salt, lemon juice, just for kind of balance and some acidity, and then ground cardamom. All of those things, the honey, the cardamom go really well with tahini. This is just super easy. We're just gonna combine all of these things in a medium saucepan. The lemon juice, salt, the cardamom, and then the honey. I like using honey versus white sugar because it has just a lot more flavor. Turn this on high if you want a rapid boil to really start to break down the cranberries. For just the first kind of 2-3 minutes, I'm just gonna give this a little bit of stir. Okay, so we have our cranberries boiling. You can see how they're starting to split. And now we're going to just reduce to medium heat and we'll let that simmer. Just kind of give things a stir occasionally. It smells so good. It's like the honey and the cardamom. You're gonna see these big bubbles in the beginning when it's starting to break down. And then as it breaks down and becomes, close to jam, you're gonna see smaller, more concentrated bubbles. We're in a pretty good place now. So it's gotten a lot thicker. And I don't like to mix too much. You can still see the cranberries, some of them that are whole, that I haven't fully broken down. You just have to be super careful. It can burn your mouth very easily. You can see it's quite thick. You definitely get the cardamom. There's a good amount of honey, but it's still quite acidic, which I love. It's going to continue to thicken as it cools. We're gonna let this cool for an hour and then we'll wrap it with plastic wrap, press it directly on the cranberry sauce, keep it covered and chilled. All right, these are our Brussels sprouts buried in cream. There's not a lot of ingredients. I'm just gonna trim dark green parts. Give these a trim over here. And then we will split them in half. And then we're just giving it a coarse chop. No need to kind of finely chop here. Leeks have a more kind of mild sweetness to them that I think go really well with the sweetness of the cream, the Brussels sprouts, lemons. I'm just gonna give them a rinse, get rid of any of the sand in between the layers. Now we're just gonna prep our Brussels, just give them a trim, split them in half. We have 6 cloves of garlic, and we're just gonna thinly slice that. Okay, so we're cooking it in a Dutch oven. I am gonna eventually transfer this to a 2-quart dish. That dish is gonna be the same one that we're gonna be putting on our Thanksgiving table. So just give them a stir until they're coated in the oil, and then you can kind of just let them go until they get some color. So you don't really wanna combine Brussels sprouts and cream and hope for the best in the oven. You kind of wanna caramelize them with some oil first. Okay, we have chard and spots. I really want to eat one just for. Now we add our leeks, lots of garlic. The leeks have softened, 2 cups heavy cream. Okay, so you can see how the cream has reduced. It's really coating the leeks and the Brussels sprouts. This is the time to really deeply season those Brussels sprouts because once you kind of put them in the baking dish, you're just gonna hope for the best. This can take quite a bit of salt. And pepper. You want to make sure they taste good and that the Brussels sprouts are tender. You don't want anything to be crunchy. We're going to turn off the heat. We have 1 small lemon. I'm going to zest the whole lemon in this. It's going to be about a tablespoon. The lemon zest kind of brings everything back to life and a little bit of brightness. Our Brussels are done. We are just going to transfer them to our 2-quart baking dish. I like kind of making sure that the top isn't flat because then when you scatter the breadcrumbs, you're going to have these like pockets of ones that are a little bit more crisp, ones that are a little bit more soft. First day prep done. I'm gonna cross off my list. Prep veg, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. We did a lot of good work. We should be proud. I'm gonna get some rest, put on a cuter outfit, and then we'll get back to cooking tomorrow. All right, we're back. Day 2. We have a lot to get through. We are gonna get our glaze going for our pomegranate glazed turkey. Super simple. It's a combination of pomegranate juice, honey, soy sauce, garlic, thyme, and some orange peel. It's a really delicious glaze that I think can go on a lot of different proteins. And you wanna look for pomegranate juice that has no added sugar. 3 orange peels. I just take a vegetable peeler. A lot of kind of familiar scents and ingredients for the holidays. I'm just gonna take thyme sprigs and I'm just kind of crush it to get the oils going. And then 4 cloves of garlic. You have the pomegranate juice that's going to concentrate. You still need a good amount of honey though to bring in that sweetness, and it's also going to help with that kind of lacquered, shiny, glossy look we're going for our turkey. And then kind of an essential ingredient, no matter any year for me, is some soy sauce. It's just gonna give a wonderful kind of deep amber color. Just a lot of flavor that goes beyond just salt. We're gonna turn this on to medium heat, and we're just gonna reduce this for 20 to 25 minutes. You don't want it to kind of scorch and burn, and once it starts to reduce down, it's gonna happen very, very quickly. So it's kind of, you want that perfect spot where it's kind of pourable and sticky and thickened, but it hasn't become a full paste. I make gravy ahead of time. If you wanna make it the day of or hours before, please go ahead. We're doing a brown butter gravy. Super, super tasty. We're using soy sauce and pomegranate juice, just a little bit. Lots of shallots, thyme, flour, salt and pepper, and then good stock. A bone broth would be great. Look for something that ideally is low sodium, just so you have control over the salt. We're using a ton of shallots, leaving the shallots in the gravy. Thinly slice it. Typically, when you're browning butter, you'll kind of continue cooking the butter until the milk solids brown. But for here, you're gonna allow the butter to brown as the shallots are cooking. Doing a gravy, you want it to connect with the glaze you're making. That's why we're using a bit of soy and pomegranate. So the shallots are starting to soften. Our butter has not browned yet. It'll start to get a little bit speckly, the butter. That pool of butter is starting to get a little bit darker. And this is the time where it can happen very quickly. That's why you have to kind of keep stirring. If anything is sticking on the bottom, any of the kind of milk solids, you just want to scrape up. Next, we're gonna add our flour, and we're gonna cook it for about 5 to 7 minutes. Take your time when making a roux. It's like, I think people try to go really fast with it. You want it to kind of build up and develop a lot of flavor, and that's by taking it to the right color. And we're going for a kind of golden brown color. You don't want it to be too pale. That's just not gonna add as much flavor. And you want it to get really, really thick. The longer it cooks, the deeper the color will be, and the more flavor it'll add to your gravy. People talk about this idea of lumpy gravy. The one trick is to gradually add your liquid. And I think most people would probably add their liquid at this stage. We definitely want to take our time in getting that roux even darker. You can see the color is really changing, both in the roux and the shallots. So this is the stage where we add our liquid. Take a moment to stop, stir everything in. Things will thicken up very quickly here. And then I'll just add more. And you can see how it becomes paste-like very quickly, and that's totally okay. And then when you kind of have this like still thick, but like a little bit looser stage, that's when you're kind of good to go. And so that was like about 1/3 of our stock, and then we could add our rest. So we have our roux done, we have our shallots that have been browned, we have our stock, and we're gonna add some thyme, soy sauce, and pomegranate juice. It's quite loose now. You're gonna let that reduce, thicken, get more concentrated, we'll taste, and that's when we'll season with salt and pepper. Okay, our glaze is in a good place. Maybe a touch loose, but it's gonna thicken as it cools. And you're just going for a little bit over 1/2 cup. We'll set that aside. The gravy is pretty much at a perfect consistency. I'm gonna season this with salt and pepper. You can just leave this in the saucepan if you're doing the day of, and then you can just reheat over low heat right before serving. The kind of consistency I love is when it's thick enough to coat the spoon. It's so savory, toasty, and buttery, and you get like that acidity from the pomegranate. We're just gonna fish out the thyme. That's probably the hardest part of making this. We gotta move on. We have our turkey that has the dry brine on it. It's been going for about 24 hours. You can notice that like a dry brine bird will have these kind of, it feels like the skin has maybe adheres more to the meat, and this will just allow for a better browning. We pulled it out a little over an hour ago. This will just ensure a more even cooking in the oven. I love using oil to rub my turkey. I know a lot of people love butter. I just like a more even browning with oil. Plus you have all the butter in our gravy. First, we're gonna just pour some water. You pour that water just so it kind of catches all the fat from the turkey. It doesn't burn on the bottom. And then you could use a pastry brush if you want to be really even. I just kind of drizzle oil all over and then just kind of pat it. You may need a little bit more oil. That little bit of water, that 1 cup, is also gonna prevent it becoming like a smoky situation, especially like when it's at 450 degrees for that 30-minute mark. It eventually will evaporate and you'll maybe wanna add more, but just keep an eye on that. We're gonna put our turkey in for about 25-30 minutes and then reduce the heat to 325. Okay, we're gonna check. This is our turkey after about 30 minutes at 450. We're gonna do our initial glaze. You can see how it's taken on some color. And we're gonna be glazing every 20 minutes. Again, depending on how big your bird is. And then you're gonna insert a thermometer into the thickest part of the breast for 160 degrees. We just dropped the heat to 325 and it's gonna go for another 65 to 85 minutes. Whew. Mashed potatoes. So many people have opinions. Soft, fluffy, creamy, buttermilk, no buttermilk, all butter, no butter, and just cream. But that's crazy, you gotta put some butter. We're adding turmeric, which gives it a kind of beautiful golden color and a nice like earthy flavor. We're also gonna be mixing some aged cheddar, which makes it even just like that much more indulgent. We're using a mix of potatoes here. What we think of like fluffy mashed potatoes, that's what you would use russets for. Yukons have a more of a kind of buttery, creamy texture. I love the combination. 4 pounds of mix of the potatoes. We're just going to peel them and cut them into like 2-inch pieces. You always want to start with cold water. That's because you want the outside to cook at the same rate as the inside. And to do that, you always start with cold water. Bring that to a boil. I'm gonna add some salt. I'm gonna cover a little bit more water just so the potatoes are submerged. Cheese. We're gonna just grate our cheddar. Any kind of melting cheese is gonna work, but I like aged cheddar. If this seems like a lot of cheese, it is. Okay, our cheese is grated. Okay, I'm just gonna combine our cream, our buttermilk, and then all of our ground turmeric. We're not reducing here, we're just heating it up. Whenever you're adding cream or buttermilk to your potatoes, you want them warm. You don't want to be combining hot potatoes with cold. That's what you're going for, where you can easily pierce. They're not totally falling apart, but they're tender. Trick is though, you want to test at least 2 or 3 potatoes just to make sure that they're all tender. That one was tender, another one wasn't, so just give it another few minutes. Our turmeric, buttermilk, and cream mixture is done. You can see how the turmeric just gives this kind of amazing neon yellow color. Give them a little shake to get rid of any excess water. And you could just let them cool for a few minutes. We're trying to get as much water out so that they get fluffy. Let's rice our potatoes. Again, you do not have to. You could just mash them up with a wooden spoon or a potato masher. This is the hardest dish. It just takes a lot of time, patience. I am in a situation where it's just me. This should not be the case with you. You should ask your friends, your family, your lover to help out. Like, this is a very easy task for someone to do who isn't necessarily a confident cook. It's good to ask. We can't do everything by ourselves. People generally want to help out. But this is actually, I'm gonna say, for those of you who come empty-handed, which is a big no-no, and then eat the food, doesn't matter if you're family, friends, you better be doing 1 or 2 things. 1, you better be the most entertaining person at that table. Or 2, you're doing majority of the dishes. And don't bring food that the host didn't ask for. Like, that's not a great surprise. Just communicate with the host, just be nice. Wooden spoon. I just wanna, I didn't know we need this in the world. I don't even know what my feeling is about this. I'm confused. Cold, unsalted butter. You don't wanna over-mix your potatoes. You are just gonna give this a mix just until the butter has melted and kind of coated the potatoes. I'm also gonna just season this a little bit. You can see how I'm not doing this kind of motion. I'm not aggressive with the potatoes. We have our cream and we have our cheese. We're just gonna go in between batches. We'll start with some cream, about 1/3 of the cheese. And it doesn't need to fully melt before you add the rest. I just love this color. Right now it feels like a lot of liquid, but the potatoes can take quite a bit of fat. They're gonna only absorb more and more as they sit. Even with all that fat, they're still tangy because of the buttermilk. It's not quite like aligot, but a little bit because of the amount of cheddar. I think all it needs is some chives to go on top. All right, rice, coconut rice with crispy kale. We don't have stuffing this year, which is fine because you're not gonna miss it with this. It has a lot of texture, aromatics with the ginger and garlic and shallots and chilies. I'm just using basmati rice, but you could use jasmine rice, any kind of long grain rice. We're gonna give this a good rinse, remove the excess starch, and then we're also gonna give it a soak for 30 minutes. I know that may be annoying, but I promise you it is essential. It cuts the cooking time down. It also allows to kind of absorb the coconut milk and the water. All right, we have the rice that's been soaking. We're gonna just drain this. Next, we're gonna just kind of chop up our garlic, our ginger, shallots, chilies. Because you have that kind of sweetness from the coconut milk, you kind of want a little bit of heat. We're using 2 coconut ingredients, the full fat coconut milk, unsweetened, and virgin coconut oil. You wanna use virgin or unrefined coconut oil. That's what's gonna give that kind of sweet, nutty, toasty smell. And just, it actually does bring so much of the flavor, just as much, if not more, than the coconut milk. We're just gonna cook the shallots until they've softened, taking them to like a golden, even golden brown in certain spots. I'm not really looking for color here. We're just kind of cooking them down until they have softened for a few minutes. A lot of dishes on a Thanksgiving table, it can be maybe overly sweet or they're fatty. I wanted something on this menu that had some heat, and then also adding like a lot of kind of crunchy bits with the kale that we're gonna make next. Just make something that's like one of those side dishes, but are actually just as important, if not doing more work than the turkey itself. We're gonna add our drained soaked rice. Give that a stir just until like it's all coated, and then you're gonna add water and your full fat unsweetened coconut milk, and then 2.5 teaspoons kosher salt. And just give that a stir. We're gonna bring it to a simmer, then reduce it to low. Let that go for 25 minutes. Okay, our spicy coconut pilaf is done. Let it continue to steam, covered for 10 minutes. We have some kale here. This is just curly kale. We're just gonna remove the stems, not just at this end, the whole entire rib. And this is just gonna add a kind of, not only like a colorful green, we're making kale chips, so it's gonna be not only nice and crunchy, but we're going to toss this with that same virgin of coconut oil that we cooked all the aromatics in. So it's gonna give a sweet, toasty coconut flavor to the kale. Season with a little bit of salt. And then I just go in, I think it's best to use your hands. And you just kind of scrunch it up and toss, just to ensure that coconut oil is really kind of dressing each leaf. And then spread that out, just so that it bakes evenly. This is gonna go in the oven at 350 for 12 to 15 minutes. Okay, let's give our kale a little toss. They're steaming, some have shriveled up. The leaves are small, you can see some of them are already starting to crisp up. All right, my kale is at the 12-minute mark. If you're using bigger leaves, they can go a little bit longer, but this looks pretty good. All right, we're back to our orange veg, our gourds. We're using red curry squash. Any squash that has a really nice, thin, edible skin would be great. Honey nuts are so delicious, but I definitely have a soft spot for red curry. It's so beautiful. When they're in peak season, you can see them really small. We're just going to cut these into kind of 2-inch wedges. We're gonna scoop the seeds out. Red curries have a kind of like nutty, super creamy flesh, thin skin, like a hazelnut flavor. We're gonna cut our squash like 2-inch wedges. I have my squash, I'm just gonna toss with some oil, some salt and pepper. Similar to the kale, you just kind of wanna get in there and make sure everything's nicely coated. Try to kind of flip them so you have the flesh side down so they get some color. We're gonna bake this in the oven at 425. Because these are a little bit smaller, they're gonna go maybe for like 15 minute mark, check, flip them, toss them, and then we'll let them go for another 10 to 12 minutes. It's been 20 minutes, we're gonna check on our turkey and glaze it one more time. We're just dabbing all over. And really kind of go for the spots that aren't getting as much color. Last glaze, you can see it's definitely starting to get darker. We're gonna let it keep going, and then we'll insert meat thermometer into the thickest part of the breast until it registers 160, and then we'll let it cool. All right, we're like getting there. I feel good. I have our dip, we made that ahead of time. It holds up still super nicely. We're gonna serve it with crunchy, fresh things and some seedy crackers. You want something kind of light that people can kind of graze on, nibble on, but it doesn't sit too heavy. First, I'm gonna just take some of these crackers, really pretty charcoal crackers with a lot of seeds. And then I have some fennel, but you could use radishes, I have cucumbers, lettuce. We have our fennel, and then the cucumbers, I'm kind of just cutting them out of like a little bit of a bias, like kind of little tapers. I don't know what happened there. I have some gem lettuce here, chicory. I think with chicory, which is like a little bit of a tougher leaf, you just separate the leaves. They're so pretty. They have this kind of rosy blush color. And we'll just tuck that in. And with gem, you could also separate the leaves. It's like arranging flowers. Yeah, I think that looks pretty nice. I tasted this dip off camera. It was delicious. I didn't make any adjustments, but just a reminder, you should taste the dip. And then I'm going to just spoon this. I'm just making a little bit of a little divot for the oil and the pistachios and the dried chilies we're gonna put on top. Let's see how it looks. I love rice, I could eat it every day. I pretty much do. I'm just gonna fluff this up, put the lid back on, just so it stays warm. And then we'll kind of mix in the kale, cilantro, and top it off. But this is good to go. Okay, let's check our squash. You wanna see this. You wanna see the oil bubbling all around the edges. Give everything a flip. We're gonna let this go for probably another 10 minutes, and then we'll pull them out. Okay, so we have our chili crisp, but to make it our citrus chili crisp, we need to add some citrus zest. We pulled it out of the fridge. It's come to temp, so it's a little bit looser now. And again, we're doing this the day up because you want those kind of citrusy, fresh notes And if you do it too early, just kind of fade away. And then last thing for the chili crisp is the honey. It's super savory from the hot smoked paprika, the chili flakes, shallots, garlic, and you just kind of want to offset all that with just a little bit of sweetness. Next, grab a knife, squeeze the juice out of both the orange and the lemon. You get that luscious, creamy, fatty, a little bit tangy thing with the Greek yogurt, but then squeezing the juice from the citrus makes this whole thing come together and loosens up the yogurt too, so it becomes more of like a sauce. And then we're gonna season this with some salt. And you want this to be kind of like a salty, citrusy yogurt, so it can take quite a bit of salt. And just keep stirring, it'll like all come together. It's still quite thick, but it kind of has a looser, creamier consistency. It'll act like a kind of fluffy bed for the squash. Now we're like kind of nearing, what is it? Fourth quarter, third inning, I don't know, ninth inning. You should be tasting and adjusting. That's perfect. You get like the orange, you get the lemon, it's seasoned well. I'll set this aside and then we will get our squash out of the oven. Okay, our squash is nice and soft. It's nice and caramelized underneath. If you really want it piping hot, you could obviously reheat this just really quickly, but I think this is just a dish that is delicious even at room temp, so it's fine if this cools down a bit. We're just gonna set this aside for now. We have our Brussels. They're at room temp now. We're gonna make our breadcrumb topping. That's gonna give a nice kind of crunchy contrast to these buried in cream Brussels sprouts. Breadcrumb topping is super simple. I just have some pullman or miche sourdough whole wheat bread that you kind of tear up, but you could also just use panko if you'd like. And I just have some parsley. I actually like stems. I love stems. It actually has more of a concentrated flavor, so use your stems. And here we're just gonna scatter the breadcrumbs on top. They're gonna go in at 425 for 15 to 18 minutes. The Brussels and leeks, they're already fully cooked, so we're just kind of reheating them and making sure the top is nice and brown and crisp. Wow, our Brussels are perfect. Wow. They are golden. You can see the cream kind of bubbling around the edges. The breadcrumbs are golden. The parsley is still kind of a nice green. It smells so good. I'm gonna let this cool for just 5 minutes. We are gonna make our maple whipped cream for our olive oil pumpkin cake. This is a pretty simple whipped cream, but it has an addition of sour cream. That just gives another kind of tang. We're just gonna whip this up like soft peaks. Don't walk away when you're whipping your cream. This is why I like doing it by hand. It can overmix, it can get too stiff, and then it can get kind of like grainy, which is what you don't want. So just stay put. That feels good. They're still soft. They don't stand up straight. We're just looking for soft peaks, and then we'll just add our sour cream, a pinch of salt. And this is also why you kind of want to make your whipped cream towards the last minute, like the last hour or so, because you don't want your whipped cream to deflate. We're in a pretty good place now. Sometimes I'll just pull it right before, reach like almost stiff peaks. It's like slightly sweetened from the maple syrup, and it has that nice tang from the sour cream. I'm going to just go around the sides one more time. I'm gonna give it a little bit more of a whisk just by hand. Sometimes that's my trick. I take control over the machine. I think if you're making this like an hour ahead, you should still like cover and chill it. Perfect. All right, let's check our turkey. It must be done at this point. Looks gorgeous. See, it has that shine. It has that glossy effect from all the glaze that we made. Our turkey has rested, and I'm gonna get ready to carve it. Feel free to like present the whole turkey to everybody, have them do the oohs and ahs, and then you're gonna go back into the kitchen. It's gonna be you and that turkey, and you're just gonna carve it. I don't listen to podcasts, I don't think. I definitely listen to a lot of music when I'm cooking. I wasn't that way when I was younger. What am I listening to now? I mean, I'm still listening to Brad. The meat is very shreddy, which is what we want. How does that look, Brad? And then garnish it or not. I am so proud of this turkey. It's nice and glossy. Everybody's just gonna be so happy to be there, so it doesn't matter if your turkey breast slices are too thin or too thick. Don't worry. We have some garnishes here. We have some thyme sprigs, some very cute pomegranate branches, and some persimmons. Use garnishes to cover up anything that you might feel self-conscious about. Or not, just make it to make it look pretty. All right, this is our pomegranate glazed turkey. She's a beauty, she's a star. She came and conquered. Got one plated, we're gonna continue plating more, and I think we're just kind of getting into finishing mode. Our green feta dip is done. I'm just gonna give it a final little drizzle of oil, some pistachio, it's gonna give like a nice crunch, some chili, and just a tiny bit of flaky. Mashed potatoes, we just kind of reheated over low heat. They're still super creamy, have that crazy golden turmeric color. 2 pats of butter, lots of chives, and just a little bit of pepper. We have our maple whipped cream. I'm just gonna plop it in the center like that. And always kind of start at the very center. And then we'll just kind of go around, not fully to the edge before I add more. I feel like I said a martini somewhere, but I feel like that'll happen eventually. Tahini, it adds a toasty flavor, but it also adds fat. All of our dishes are done. They are bright, they're colorful, they're beautiful, there's so much texture. Now I'm just gonna arrange a little bit. I am so happy to see all my dishes done and plated. I can't wait for you guys to make this at home. Before I can't wait to taste. I'm gonna cross hopefully everything off. I don't think I missed anything. Boom, cran, yes. Brussels, looking beautiful, and that's where we're at right now. Thank you, Brad. I'm gonna take a sip of my martini. I feel like I deserve it, you deserve it after you made a meat like this. Okay, I'm gonna taste the green feta dip first. I'm gonna get some of this really beautiful lettuce in there, some cucumbers. I have to get into these mashed potatoes. They're insane looking. I got greedy, I got a lot of the chives. Normally would go for like a drumstick, but I feel like that's aggressive for camera. The coconut rice, our Brussels sprouts buried in cream. I'm putting some of that mashed potatoes aside because there might not be any left, even no matter how much I make. The turkey you can't hide, and then, yeah, I usually will like just put like a pint or two just for me because people obviously want leftovers and I want to give that away to them, but certain things I'll set aside. Oh, squash. Always need an orange veg moment. Cranberry sauce with the tahini. And just put it in the center. And a little bit of gravy. All right, I'm just gonna try the dip first. Gradually work in the other dishes. So crunchy, so tangy, creamy, bright. I'm gonna try a little bit of the Brussels. It's like that sweet cream is so good. And the Brussels sprouts are perfect. They're like not mushy, they're fully tender, and the leeks are super soft and jammy, and then you have this kind of crunchy, herby topping with the parsley on top. The mashed potatoes are like better than when I first made them. They're so good. I mean, the color is crazy. I'm gonna get a little bit of turkey. It's really delicious. The toasty black pepper works so well with the fruitiness from the pomegranate. Make the cranberry sauce. Make the cranberry sauce. If anybody who doesn't love cranberries, like this will be the game changer, I promise you. It's always in these scenarios I remember that I'm a spoon and fork kind of guy. The rice is so fragrant and fluffy. The kale acts as like a nice crunchy texture, but also just like having so many greens, crunchy, crispy, spicy, sweet, creamy. I'm gonna try the cake, but I need a palate cleanser to cut it, you know? Small slice. Haven't fully had my dinner yet, so a petite slice, but with extra cream. The maple whipped cream, I mean, the cake itself is so tender, but the maple whipped cream is just like, I'm just gonna always add sour cream to all my whipped cream. I don't think there'll be leftovers of this cake. If there is for some reason, griddle it. This is my kind of Thanksgiving. Bright, colorful, a little unexpected, super approachable still. I really wanted to create a Thanksgiving that will be memorable. Don't get stressed. I feel like I get questions all the time about how to kind of pace yourself, what to make. I think the big thing is just to kind of have faith. It's okay if, you know, the squash gets a little bit more brown or if the mashed potatoes are maybe a little bit loose, although that won't be happening with these recipes. This was Thanksgiving in 48 hours. I think there are times where I've had even less time, that only had the day of. If you have more time, certainly look into the article. We have like a 5-day game plan, day by day, and then day of, just kind of going from morning of, afternoon, you know, a few hours before, hour before. I hope you guys make all these recipes. I hope you love it, and I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. You can find all of these recipes and plenty more on New York Times Cooking.